If you've ever wondered if there are topics that are too dark for Christian writing, then this is the episode for you. So stay tuned.
Hi, welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
And I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
And we're still praying for the recovery of Christina Catane, who will be returning to the podcast hopefully in a couple of weeks, right, Jen?
Yeah, she's actually visiting her mom, which we were praying through that because she had to fly across the country. But it's a vacation that they had planned since last fall. And her mother is not young, and so they did not want to reschedule. And so she made it there safely. And, so be praying for her that she enjoys her time with her mom, but continues to heal as well.
Yeah, and so it's just the two of us, and it has been for a while, but we are persevering, and we really appreciate the support of our listeners, and especially our listeners who are able to catch us live at 10 a.m. Eastern on Fridays, which includes today, Purpose Behind the Pen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We really appreciate all of your support. And if you're not able to join us live, do catch us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. We are there. If you love us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell everybody. That is our motto. And so without further ado, we will start the segment of our podcast called the What's Up? What's up with you, Jen? What have you been up to since our last get together?
I was afraid you're going to start with me because now all I can think about is why we were running late, and I don't want to share that.
Well,
so my girls finished school.
Yay!
Mostly. So if you're a homeschooler, you get that, like, so I have one daughter who just kind of took her time with math this year. And now she's like, okay. So now she only has math. So it feels like summer vacation because she just does a couple of math lessons a day and she'll be finished soon. And my other daughter was kind of lazy with social studies for some reason. I don't know why. But like as Jamie taught me early on, because I started homeschooling later, my kids were in middle school and when we started and upper elementary. And I was like, just stressing myself out. And then there'd be days that I didn't even help them. And she's like, Jen, this is what point they should be at. If you had started younger with them, it would be 100% you teaching. And then eventually you get them to where they are doing it themselves. And that was so freeing for me. And it was one of the best advice I ever got, Jamie. I don't know if I ever told you that. I don't know if you even remember that, but my girls are very independent because of that. And it helps you to also understand, like, there are certain things that have hard deadlines in life, and there are certain things that don't. And they pay the price if they don't stay on task. And they know that, like, throughout the year. So it's not like, oh, I can't believe I still have school, or there's no blame on mom. They're just like, well, I guess I'm just going to do a whole unit of social studies a day so I can be done this week. And that's what my one daughter is doing because she has nothing else to do. So,
and lo and behold, the reports I'm getting from public school is that more of the instruction is turning to ownership on the child's shoulders and less of actual teacher in front of the room teaching, especially at the high school level for subjects that aren't like mathematics.
Right. So my son, who's old, my stepson, but he's my son, who is older than my girls. There's a 7-year difference between him and my oldest. And when he was in college is when we started homeschooling, and he had major doubts because he had, not been homeschooled. And but he didn't really tell me that. And it was probably a year later. And he told me that admitted that he had major doubts. And then he said, but then I looked around my school, and he goes to a Christian college. Or went to. Now he works for the Christian college in administration. And he said, I looked around, and the most successful kids in school were the homeschooled kids. They weren't struggling like I was, mom. Like he was struggling with like the keeping on top of deadlines and the balancing all the different classes and making sure that he was, because in public school you were used to people just telling you this, don't forget, this is due tomorrow, all these reminders. And you don't have that in homeschool. You just do it. You have like your own system. And I have seen that in my oldest daughter, who made the dean's list both semesters. Thank you very much. And doing really great and very successful in college. So yeah, I am blessed that we are able to have this lifestyle where I can homeschool them, and I'm blessed to have mentors like you and Tina that were able to talk me through it. Because you probably remember those early days before, like the minute I put my oldest daughter, on the bus for kindergarten, I thought to myself, why in the world am I doing this? I'm sending my little baby off to spend more time with another person, like, because it's long days. Like in Michigan, I don't know if it's the same elsewhere, but it's all day, kindergarten is, which is just feels like a tragedy to me. So anyway, I know homeschooling isn't for everybody, and I am not anti-public school. I used to be a public school teacher. I'm not anti-public school, but this has been the best gift for my family as us doing this. And yeah, anyway, that's my what's up. It's almost summer vacation for us here.
All right. Well, Meg has been able to join us since we've started. Hi, Meg. Good to see you. And Purpose Behind the Pen has a wild what's up. She finished school with a 3.78.
And doing all this writing for books. That is amazing.
Yes, and she dropped book 19, and her 20 and 21 are on countdown. Prolific Purpose Behind the Pen. She is really committed to her writing goals. That's awesome. Good for you. Lots to celebrate. Right. Piper's also joined us. Good morning, Piper. And she's also offering her congratulations to Purpose Behind the Pen.
And Meg says that her kindergarten was half days for her younger two in Davison, which is interesting because honestly, that's the school district that we used to be in. Loved the school district, loved the elementary schools. I could not say enough great things about the elementary schools at that district, but yep.
Okay, so my what's up is a little bit of a household hint combined with a quasi show and tell. So
you're gonna talk about it for a little bit because I forgot to pull it up.
Well, I have been halfway looking around for a dresser or maybe just another cube unit to put storage cubes in. I've been too stingy to spend the money to get a brand new one. So I just halfway look around when I'm out on the weekends to see, can I get a deal? And I happened to go on Marketplace and search the term dresser. And I found this really cute mid-century style dresser. And the woman only wanted $25. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. And then as I asked her, is it going to fit in my hatchback? And so she sent me a picture of it with dimensions from the Target website. And the price on there was $250. And I was like, wow, I'm getting a bargain. So I show up there and she's kind of explaining to me that she's made it such a discount because of the scratches that are on it. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, it's $25 and it's solid wood for the most part. I mean, it has that paper cardboard back on it. It's not, unfortunately, not even for $250 do you get all wood. But it is a cute dresser and it did have scratches. Well, I went and looked online for tips of getting scratches out of a dresser. So this is, for example, what the top looked like.
And I'm sorry for the quality because it was not letting me, it wanted me to restart. And I can't, obviously, because we're live right now, but.
Right. Well, and if you're listening by audio, the picture's not doing you any good. Ooh, nice focus, nice zoom. So you can see there, it has considerable amount of scratching. And so she's like, this is a $25 dresser. Oh, glimpse at Jen Social. Okay. And then also, I found a hint. Look at this. This is the after. Do you know what I did to get these results, ladies and gentlemen?
I do.
Yeah, Jen knows. And all I did was take a pecan and rub it across the surface of the dresser.
That is so crazy.
Got the scratches to just this minimal amount that you see here. So that's my hint for you. If you have some furniture that's scratched up, grab a nut. The advice was a walnut or a pecan. I had some leftovers from a recipe of pecans, so I just grabbed those little pecan chips and just started coloring away on the dresser. And now you can see it is not perfect, but I think it's way better than it was, and I
It's
love
a
it.
really pretty dresser. You didn't send a picture of that. Actually, I might have one
No. Oh,
from when you sent
yeah.
me earlier. So if I give me a second for yeah, it's a beautiful dresser,
It's right
minus the
over there, but it's got
scratches.
a bunch of
So
stuff on it, so I don't want to haul it over here.
right.
But yeah, so if it's a really good, and then it's so funny. I told my sister, and she's like, "Oh, I know about the nut trick." She called it. She said she got a little bit obsessed and went around her house rubbing, like her medicine cabinet, anything that had like wood trim in her house, because she just got obsessed with eliminating. So there's the dresser. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I know. I love it so much. And I
Very
even,
pretty.
so with the part around the handle, you can see there's a little bit of, I grabbed a like crayon from, Ace Hardware, the
Mhm.
wood
The wood
crayons.
crayons.
Like,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And filled that in even with a little bit of black. And so now from a distance, you walk into the room and it looks like I've got a nice, beautiful dresser
It is a
sitting there.
beautiful dresser. I just
I just love it.
appreciate. Oh yeah, we don't want to see all my socials. Don't even know what's even going on there.
Meg is asking, will the pecan rub off or does it absorb? So check it out. I cleaned it after. I cleaned it before because I was bringing it in my house, and then I cleaned it after because I saw fingerprints on it, and it stayed unscratched, it did not rub off. If that's the answer to your question. It did not rub off.
Because I think it has to do with the oils. I think that it's the oil of the nut that is doing that, and you probably could do the same thing if you got a high quality oil or whatever. But then you have to do the whole thing where a little nut can just take care of that little spot. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, and I
Right?
think it maybe helps the stain to move into the crack. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's
Yeah.
releasing the stain or making it equivalent
Yeah.
of wet again. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yep. That makes
Chemistry.
total. Yeah, it makes total sense. Honestly. So,
Oh, Meg says, "Oh, that style reminds me of my mom's old bedroom set." I know the furniture.
mm.
Oh, I really like mid-century. I
I was gonna
really
say
do.
mid-century modern, right? That's totally
Mm-hmm.
you, 100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, so yes, so I was really jazzed about that find, and that's my what's up. So I guess we should get into our topic du jour, which is basically, I don't know how we shorthanded it, but we're talking about discernment and darkness. That's what it is. We're talking about handling hard topics in your writing. So this may not be an episode for everyone who might be easily triggered talking, just mentioning the words abuse or trauma. So if that's you, have a wonderful week, and we understand if you can't participate in this episode. But we are going to talk about maybe addressing this from the perspective of a Christian writer, a writer who writes Christian books, or just a Christian who is a writer. And so, Jen, would you say, why would you say this matters? Why are we even talking about this?
because it's life. Right? If we're going to tell true stories, even in fiction, it has to feel real. And this stuff is important to people. And some people, can be cathartic for people, but it also can bring truth to a story. If you want to write a story about, like me, World War I, and you never touch on the topic of battle or war, then it's not going to feel genuine. And we've all read books like that, and it's okay if that's what you want to do. That's your story. But to be more genuine and to tell a soldier story, like we talked last week about remembrance, you really need to sometimes hit hard topics and to really get to the heart of the matter for some of your characters. Sometimes when I'm discovery writing, I didn't know when I first was starting my series that some of my characters were going to have experienced abuse, but through the process of writing, that's what came out as this character. And so it was just important because it's true to life. It's what happens in the world.
Yes, and the characters are what are going to make your stories. You say it all the time, Jenna. Character is king, right?
Characters matter. Yep.
Characters matter, and if you want it to be real, there's this term called Mary Sue, somebody who's just perfect,
Right.
and I feel like that would be somebody who experiences nothing in their life that is traumatic, but that's not the human experience. We all go through stuff.
Right.
Okay, so now we kind of agree, or we've at least discussed why it's necessary to have it handle dark subjects. But why would someone be inclined to shy away from it? I think it's probably more likely that a Christian might shy away.
Right.
And why do you think that would be?
Because of being Christian. I think people are worried about their books being labeled not Christian, because let's
Mm-hmm.
be honest, there's a lot of books out there that are violent for being violent or that
Yeah.
are nasty for being nasty. And that's a whole genre. And we're not that genre. Christian writing is not, is not, um, like going to be is not meant to be abusive just for the fun of being abusive. There always has to be a message that reaches back to Jesus, right? We talked about that before too. So you don't want to offend your readers who come in looking for a Christian book and all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is not Christian. So you're worried about offending your Christian readers. I would think the number one most important reason why.
Yes, because, well, and it's funny because I have said in my youth, my foolish youth, and have heard, you call yourself a Christian and yet you dot 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 fill in the blank. And so they don't want the end of it to be like, would write this kind of a book or
Right.
would write this plot line. But the thing is, there are some denominations that have a harder line about some subjects, and some cultures that people participate in that might consider it taboo to talk about such things. And so I guess that would put you off
Right.
of maybe discussing these hard topics.
And specifically in my genre, you don't want to lose that label of clean, right?
Ah,
There's so many different kinds of romance, but you don't want anyone or any, organization to label you as not a clean writer, because clean romance is what you do, so it's a fine line, but those are, I think, are the fears that keep people away from the hard topics.
okay, so let's say, Blanche is considering writing her
Well,
Christian memoirs and she has some tough topics she wants to talk about. How would you convince her that it's important to handle the tough topic, even though she has a little bit of reservation?
well, with the assumption that there's been a life change in Blanche and she has come to Jesus moment in her life, because that's kind of a hard stretch. I mean, honestly, as Christians, we have to acknowledge that Jesus often addressed the hard topics.
Ah,
And
yes, you have had a husband, and in fact, you have had several husbands, and the man you live with now is not your husband, right?
yeah, that he didn't shy
Hmm.
away from pointing out people's
Nope.
sin, and yeah, and like, and the suffering, like pointing out, like he was one of the other things too that I really feel like Jesus did was, especially with the religious leaders, pointing out the suffering of those that the religious leaders were ignoring. And
Yeah.
often suffering is the hard topics, right? The
You say to
abuses.
someone, be filled and be warm, and that does not solve their problem. I'm completely butchering the scripture, but you know the one
No,
I'm talking
right.
about, right? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess, I mean, we're writing fiction after all, for the most part. Now, I
Mm.
know some of us write nonfiction, but in fiction, I remember hearing one time, because I used to be like super duper like horror movies, scary movies, and then somebody pointed out to me that there is a personality type, or maybe it's a human, like, and also true crime. It's like people want to wrestle with evil in a format that's safe, and so if they can acknowledge the existence of evil by watching it in a movie or by anyway, the point was they had these adventures without having to actually encounter real evil and real so I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, in a fiction novel you can explore these topics maybe, and it feels a little bit safer.
Right. Agreed. Right.
And I guess if you're coming from a place of grace and you've got like a message behind it, it's not gratuitous. That makes it more of a safe space.
Right. Because if honestly, like with Christianity and our Christian writing, like our whole goal should be truth, right? The truth of God, the truth of Jesus, the truth of what the Bible has, but also there's truth in the suffering too, right? And I feel like that even when we are often silent about topics, it allows Satan to write the narrative about these topics, right? For years, you didn't talk about spousal abuse. For years, we
Mm,
didn't talk about parental abuse of children. It was just, it was not talked about. And I believe that even in Christian homes, that Satan used that to continue abuses and things that nowadays we don't put up with, right? So I think that that by us not writing about some of these topics, we are allowing Satan and allowing um, the world to write the narrative about them.
I think it's really interesting, and I reflect upon how you have shared in the past that your model for romantic love was in the Christian romances that you read, and how much it guided you in how you chose to pursue your own romantic relationships. And I think about the opportunity that there is to present a woman with a hero who is going through something that she might be going through and somehow has perseverance to carry through, carry out, leave, be a victor, endure in silence if that's what must be. And I
Hmm.
think that that can be pretty powerful. And as you
Right.
say, if we don't fill the silence, the world will, with whatever their solution is to the problem, right?
Agreed. I mean, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole that we can go down as far as like the hero, like in real life, and the man being the head of the household. And again, that's a tricky topic because people get very upset about can get very, especially if you've been in a situation where the head of the household was abusive or flat out jerk. Like we could go down a rabbit hole, right, Jamie? But
Oh,
if right,
yes,
but
yes,
if
we
we were to
can.
be on, if we were to be honest, like because it's not talked about, if we were to go back to biblical principles, both the husband and the wife, right? If we were to like go back to those where, because the world has told us that the man isn't just the head of the household, and that women should be submissive or should not be submissive, yada yada yada. And trust me, I am not. I don't know. I feel like I'm butchering this. I am about as progressive as I think as you can get with women's rights and still be a Christian. I'm very much. I'm outspoken. I'm very much like it's
You?
hard. Yeah, right. I know. But I do think that we've allowed the world to tell us what marriage is supposed to look like, and that has damaged, I think, marriages. I'm not saying that if you've been in an abusive relationship that you should have submitted and it would have been fine. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the one that was abusing was also falling into well, this is what society says it should be. Um, again,
Our
a whole nother rabbit
sorry to
hole.
interrupt you, but our chat is just going wild. Meg says that she handles all the hard topics. Good for you. And then Purpose Behind the Pen says when she wrote her first book series, she knew it wasn't going to be easy writing about struggles. And so, yeah, you got to handle with care, right?
Agreed.
Purpose Behind the Pen also says that Jesus never sugarcoated. Yeah.
Truth. That's
Mm-hmm.
truth.
Meg says one way we can fight against writing darkness for darkness' sake is to show the consequences. Ooh,
Yep.
yes. Choices matter. Oh, don't
Hmm.
they? And also sometimes in our real life, we don't get to see the consequences. So sometimes somebody getting their comeuppance in a book is very cathartic for the reader because if they're not seeing justice happen in this life, they might really like to see that enemy get their comeuppance in the book. So
Right.
yeah, I like that. Go ahead, Jen.
I was just say Meg says they don't even have to be jerks. What is if the head of the household just doesn't lead? That's exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that like if we could somehow get back to the way that God had planned it, but we are so far away from Eden. I think that it's become so difficult that that even if you are a woman who wants to have a husband who leads, what if you end up with a husband who doesn't? And then that becomes a whole nother problem too. So I think that Meg, you and I are on the same we're saying the same thing. But anyways, that's just a whole another rabbit hole that isn't what we're talking about
I
today.
know. It's like I
Sorry.
want our chat people and us to just all be in our cozy pajamas with mugs of coffee and having this conversation in a
Yes.
room, right? Because
Right.
we could, like, as Christian women, these are, I think this further demonstrates the point that if you can put these real things in your book and write them to either come out the way that you wish that they could come out, make these people turn around and become the kind of people you would want them to be, or as Meg pointed out, suffer some real consequences for these bad behaviors.
What if you wrote a book about a character who is in a marriage with somebody who is not abusive but who doesn't lead? Right. And you were able to show that through your fiction, what that does to a marriage and what that does to a family. Like, that's what we're talking about. Talk about the heart, because that will offend some Christians. They'll be like, well, he's not. Yeah. Like, well, does it matter? He's not abusing you. He's the head of the household, yada, yada, yada. But is it like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is, as an author, this is where you have the ability to write the hard topics and show biblical truths through the consequences of these. And then maybe you'll anger some writers, but I think that you could write that story in a way that would really kind of open some people's eyes to, oh, is this what I'm doing? Or, oh, is this why we're struggling in our marriage? I don't know. Just an idea.
I'm also, here's another scripture I'm going to butcher, but the part of the Bible where it says that, like, older women should mentor younger women.
Yeah.
And, here's an opportunity for you to sort of speak into the lives. Again, as I mentioned, next week, get that access to a person that normally would take a very long time of cultivating relationship to be able to say hard truths to somebody who is enduring something and could make some choices. You can empower them to make those choices from a place of being an absolute stranger who just put some black marks on a piece of paper. And the next thing you know, you're changing somebody's life for the better. It's very much power.
Yeah, because honestly, readers they just hunger for authenticity in Christian fiction. Yes, we want to escape. Yes, we want to be entertained, but we also want authenticity, and we want to be able to find ourselves, or at least be able to relate very closely to the people that we're reading about. Otherwise, it doesn't feel authentic. And so I feel like that this is so important as a place that we can share our testimonies in a way, like Jamie said, like, we aren't involved. We haven't spent years cultivating a relationship with these people so that they'll listen to us. We only have to, like, create characters that they fall in love with. And now we're able to speak truth into people's lives through our writing.
Yeah. And you know what? We have the ability to be authentic because we don't have publishing house gatekeepers. It's interesting. I was listening to somebody talk about streaming services and how television and content consuming of that medium has changed so much. And they were pointing out how once upon a time, the TV shows would go out and the Nielsen ratings and things like that would determine, viewership would determine what people want. And the audience was actually viewers at home. And now she's saying that people who create this content no longer have to please the viewer at the end of the chain. They have to please the producers who are selecting their shows for Netflix and all of these other streaming services. So by being indie authors, we do not have a gatekeeper who's going to say, yeah, but our network doesn't want to carry this particular kind of story. We get to be the ones who determine to or not to handle these particular topics. And so if we feel it's on our heart, or we feel the need to make such a story, we can.
And that's a whole nother rabbit hole I would love to go down to, which has nothing really to do with writing, but like how movie makers and big, I'll say mouse-eared companies are creating a culture that this is how life is, because they are only choosing projects or adding in certain agendas to projects and trying to normalize things. But praise God, some of them are getting so lambasted, and they are not making money. They're losing money because they are trying to force feed certain agendas down their viewers' throats, because they aren't basing it on Nielsen. They're basing it on whoever's directing. Right. So, again, that's a whole nother, that has nothing to do with this episode, but it's a great topic to talk about.
And Meg says Far From Eden sounds like a good book title. Maybe that's what you could title your book, about the man who's not leading.
Yeah, there you go. I'll let you have that title, Meg. You can write that book. Can't wait to read it.
I love it. All right. So Jen, how do you feel about this topic? Do you have any last words or final thoughts about this? Oh, wait a minute. We still haven't talked about what might be too dark. Where might you draw that line?
Right. So this is where it gets sticky, because I think some people will have different topics, but so it's not really about what the subject is that you're handling, it's about how you're handling it. So when talking about things like I don't want us to get, we have to be careful some of the words we use, and so abuse of the so not physical abuse and not emotional abuse. You gotta be careful, because we don't want to get censored by YouTube and lose out on this great topic. You don't need to give the details. You give the
maternal loss, unexpected loss of a loved one by their own hands, PTSD after war.
Right. It's not about the details of the event. It's about the emotions that you experience, or that somebody's experienced, or the consequences that was mentioned earlier in our chat.
Yes, I love that.
Okay, so
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, is there some sort of a point to bringing this up? Are you just being voyeuristic, or is there a redemptive arc? And again, the consequences, it makes a difference.
Right. So when I wrote the battle scene, which I have gotten slammed in some reviews about my my second book, because the opening scene is a battle scene, but my hero of the book is a war veteran. There is some, to be realistic, there is some language about what's happening, but the majority of that scene is what's happening internally to my character as things are happening. And so dealing with the internal will help you to be able to get the topic out there, because really that's what we're talking about, is how it affects people, right? So there are novels out there that talk about addiction, right? But we don't need to be in the middle. We need to be in what's happening. We don't need to know exactly how they're intaking their drug of choice. But what we need to know is how it is affecting them and affecting their life around them, and what they experience, and the depression that sets in, and what leads up to them finally giving up and going back to the drug, what is happening inside of them.
It's interesting, because what comes to mind is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And what I think about is how in every portrayal of the story of Frankenstein that I personally have consumed visual media, including the Mel Brooks, I can't remember the name of the Frankenstein that he did. It was all about how the Dr. Frankenstein created the monster, right? Go to the graveyard and harvest whatever. But in the book, don't you know, that was not discussed. And the author even made a point of being the dark arts used to make this happen are too dark to discuss in this book. Basically, this is what the author says. And the whole rest of the book is just about the existence of the monster and his dynamic with his creator. And so it just blows my mind that this author intentionally tried to not dwell there, kind of like we're saying, but to deal with the consequences. And yet then every piece of media that was made about the book is not about, sorry.
Right. That's crazy.
Anyway, yeah, you have to just be careful with it.
Agreed. Purpose Behind the Pen says, my 14th novel dealt with a hero who, although loved the heroine, battled with PTSD from serving as a Marine. Although it was one of my favorite books to write, it was still tough to write. I would agree with that. In my fourth book, there is the pivotal scene was very difficult, and I kept avoiding it. I knew what was going to happen in the scene. I knew what I needed to write, but I couldn't. It was very difficult to write. When I finally wrote it and I was able to walk away from it, I'm like, okay, now this book can really start rolling. So yeah, I agree. It's really hard.
Yes, and to Meg's point, you can't avoid it altogether. If you just tiptoe over the battlefield and only notice a tree in the distance, that's not realistic. You've got to deal with it.
And honestly, there might be times that you write and you do go too far. Like there are lots of people, you are on one side or the other when it comes to Francine Rivers' book, Redeeming Love. You either love it or you think she went too far. And, but you can't argue that it's one of the most read Christian romance books out there. It's one of the most talked about Christian romance books ever written. But it deals with very, very difficult topics, plural. But some people do think she went too far. So, I mean, it is a possibility. It has to be based on, like, I think, honestly, prayerfully considering how you're going to write your topics is the number one thing that you need to do. So, which we should probably talk about. How do we handle the darkness with discernment, right?
Yeah,
For
I
me,
think
prayer is the number one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. How could you disagree with that advice? Scriptural alignment,
Yes.
seeking God in everything that you do, obviously. But yes, if a lot of writers have said, and I have never said, I feel that God is calling me to write this book. So if that's the case, you probably already know how to, pardon me, seek out God's guidance in this way and allow for that to guide you.
And if your focus is to glorify God through your book, to acknowledge his presence and there's got to be a purpose, right? Don't write darkness just for the sake of writing darkness. There has to be a purpose for what, and writing with redemptive purpose, I think, is probably the most important thing you can do. And you have to know your purpose before you start writing your scene. You honestly need to know where the finish line is before you start writing, so that you write in a way that glorifies God.
Even if it's not a happy ending, even if it's like a seed of redemption that you can see, things are going to come out right in the end.
Right.
Pardon me, I have to do a real good throat.
Okay. And it's okay to have evil characters. It's okay to have the bad guys be bad guys. It's okay to redeem them, but it's also okay to have just evil and them not win, right? Because we all know in the end they're not going to win. So all right. So before we close this up, we really for sure need to talk about content warnings, which, to be honest, I have not done, and I have not got slammed yet. Now, my books are not as controversial as, I would say, Redeeming Love, though I have been compared to Francine Rivers' writing. And so I don't know if those reviews were talking about the hard topics or the writing style. I'm not really sure because they weren't really clear, but I've had a few reviews that have compared me to her. But this is not about coddling readers, but it's about honoring trauma survivors.
Yeah.
So if you feel that you are writing something that might trigger somebody, you should do it's not hard. You can Google how to write an effective content warning without spoiling your plot, where to put it in your book. Those are all things that are commonly put out there. There's instructions that you can find easily that people would suggest. Some people argue whether or not Christian fiction should include them. I feel like if you're on the fence, then you should go ahead and include it.
Yeah. And I've said before that you need to know your audience. If your audience is used to your themes being heavier, darker, etc., then probably it's not necessary. But if you're throwing it at them out of the blue, and typically what you write is not that, you may want to consider preparing your audience just so that you don't set your reader up for a surprise and not pleasant one.
Agreed. All right.
Okay, so ready to move on, Jen? We're running a little short on time. So, all right, my favorite part of Friday It's the feeding of the backs. The what? The feeding of the backs. We go around the table. This is when we were a writing group, we would go around the table and share a piece that we brought for critique. And then when it seemed like the discussion was wrapping up, I would turn to the person in a way to make sure that it was okay to stop discussing their piece. I would say, is your back well fed? Have you gotten enough feedback? So that's why we call it that. Silly. But what this is we write to a prompt before the show, and then we bring it to you and share it to you unedited. 15 minutes we take to write these, and it's just whatever comes up based on the prompt. So Jen, what was our prompt and what did you write today?
It was 5 words, and the words were experiment, recommendation, stain, entry, and camp. And I used 0 of them.
Oh, that's so funny because I think I got all of them, if not almost all. And it's usually the other way around.
Right? Role reversal.
Yeah.
So a few weeks back, I wrote in Marnie's world, where she was late to a staff meeting, but it hadn't started yet.
Yeah.
So we're picking up there.
Okay.
And you remember the Mr. Boss's dad had come in, and he's like, let's do a viral video. Like, let's just make a viral video. And everyone's
we're gonna make a viral video. Yeah, right. Just like that. Poof.
All right. So we didn't get very far because it's only 15 minutes. So I apologize, but I'll write more of this in future sprints so that you guys don't miss out. Okay. That's not how they work, sir. One Lululemon type blonde woman said confidently from her seat near the front of the table. To be fair, she was not actually wearing Lululemon at the moment, but whatever brand the clothing was she was currently wearing appeared to be very expensive. Although Marnie couldn't identify it, she knew she couldn't afford it. But she did know that she couldn't afford Lululemon, so she made the not so giant leap to assume that this woman lounged on the weekends in it. As Marnie contemplated the woman's hypothetical casual wear, the room began to agree with the blonde. Many voiced their opinions as to why you can't just make a viral video, and under their criticism, as polite and respectful as it was presented, the older gentleman started to visibly shrink. Marnie felt bad for him. He may not be young and hip like most of his employees, but he wasn't so far out of line with his ideas. The employees could have been a little more encouraging, she thought. Now hold on. Mr. Boss's low baritone interrupted the conversation, and the room grew quiet. Why don't we get the opinion of the person whose job it is to know these things? Marnie? There wasn't a sound in the room save for the pounding in Marnie's ears when all eyes followed Mr. Boss's gaze and landed on her. Marnie found herself simultaneously dying from all the attention and more dying from the shock that Mr. Boss actually knew not only her name, but her job in the company. So much for blending in behind the scenes. Because remember, she's new. This is like the beginning. Marnie, he said her name again. What? It was out before she even knew she was going to speak. Could she have said a more stupid response? What are your thoughts? Ugh, they did not want to know her thoughts, or more correctly, she would die if anyone could hear what was happening inside of her head right now. About the possibility of creating a viral video, Mr. Boss clarified, as if reading her mind. Oh, that. Again with the stupid answers. Pull it together, she commanded herself. Well, I think it is actually possible. If Marnie thought the silent staring was bad, she had no idea how terrible people staring and commenting negatively 3, 2, 1.
Oh!
And it really was 3, 2, 1 because Jamie was here. I'm like, I'll be right back.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I actually wrote down hypothetical casual wear. That's amazing.
That's my favorite part too, honestly.
Her head is just so not in the game because she's thinking she's a fly on the wall. This is not really her battle. She's new. What could I hate to confess it. I have been there. And then suddenly it's like, and what are your thoughts? Oh man. Oh man. Yeah, I love it. I love that you hurt your character in this way. Perfect. Just
when I first started writing this, I didn't know who Marnie was or what her job was, but she has grown into of course she's the social media person, the person that just has to post stuff and doesn't have to be out in front of people. She's behind the scenes kind of a thing. And so this is she's creating a really fun character. So
Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this mini series of sprints. I can't wait till it's in my hand as a book.
Thank you. All right, what did you write, Jamie?
All right. Let's see. Got to open the document. Here we go. There can't be much sadder. This sentence doesn't make sense. I'm just going to read it. There can't be much sadder in life than a rained out camp. Must be. There can't be anything. There can't be anything much sadder in life than a rained out camp. But Misty was determined to make the best of things and wouldn't allow her co-leader to get the girls grumbling at the start of the day. I don't care if your coffee is cold, Winifred Flowers. You're going to paste a smile on your face and have a good attitude for these here girls when they wake up. It's just that I chose this camp because of the free breakfast. That's what you get for taking a recommendation from Jebediah Sproul. You know that man's wife packs him in 3 good squares when he goes out. He specifically mentioned the delicious coffee, Winifred mumbled, blowing the top of her mug out of habit rather than necessity. You could do with a few less cups of coffee anyhow. It's filled with chemicals and stains your teeth. What chemicals? Well, caffeine for one. I'd argue caffeine is not quite what one would call a chemical. And my pearly whites ain't never looked better since I started seeing that new dentist out in Kiona. That hygienist is a bit heavy-handed, but she don't leave a speck of tartar. Wipe your boots. The ladies dragged their feet across the upended bristle brush poised at the cabin's entry for just this purpose before opening the heavy door. They expected to enter the same gloomy cave-like atmosphere that they'd left, but over half the girls were awake already and were seemingly none too concerned about disturbing the rest of the ones who remained abed. Someone was running a hairdryer in the adjoining bathroom. A handful of other girls were throwing a plush dog from bunk to bunk, and another was voicing the anxiety of the animal as he was vaulted, caught, and missed. So you girls ready for some adventures? Misty crowed, pleased at the atmosphere of generally good spirits that seemed destined to persevere. Miss Misty, it's Misty, said Caroline de Graffenreid to the delight of the other campers. Caroline, your wit is only surpassed by your charm, Misty replied. But you're right. We're in store for another soggy morning. But I know you all brought your ponchos, so it's actually a good time to reflect on the benefits of preparedness and resourcefulness. I'm ready for anything, proclaimed Jessica Watson, extending a leg at the end of which was tied a plastic grocery bag. Anything but some slippery mud, and we encountered a good bit of it on the way back from Chow, Winifred pointed out. Chow, chorused a few girls, who immediately set to rousing the others. That's right, grab your mess kits and get lined up, and we'll march you over for some victuals. That's the end.
Oh, I love it, Jamie, so much. Here's how it's so real to me. Is that I'm cringing the whole time because I would hate to be one of the adults on this trip. And you know me well enough to know that. Oh my gosh. Love the characters. Like the plastic bag on her ankle. What is that? I missed.
She wrapped her feet up because she thought it would be like boots. Like she's trying to keep it dry. So she put a plastic bag on her foot.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Do you want to know what's funny is I have been the adult on I have had the unfortunate pleasure of being the person in charge of the icebreakers. Do you know how aggravating it is to hear people tell you how much they hate icebreakers? And then you're like, yeah, but I'm supposed to be facilitating. So can you just get on board for my sake? You think I like icebreakers, but I need to hear everybody complain about anyway. So I have been the one who's responsible for keeping spirits up. And you know that advice I love, right? What you know, Jen. You know.
Right. Well, you can tell. It is so obvious that you have been in this scene, even though it's not a real scene. Because it was so well fleshed out and long. There's so because you were just in the scene and it was just really well.
Guess how many words?
682.
450.
Wow.
Right?
It felt like so many more than that.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. That was great.
Thanks. I appreciate it. All right. That's my favorite. I love hearing thanks. See, we don't give negative feedback. And the reason is because, like we said, we just sprinted these. Jen, 15 minutes before we started, and me, 15 minutes last night, right before I went to bed, which is why my first sentence made no sense. But anyway, we don't edit them, which is why my first sentence made no sense. And you should not be shy about sharing yours in our Facebook group. It's a private, supportive group where we all care about, there's not a dud in the bunch. We all care about each other, and we would love to see what you do with these 5 words if you care to share with us. And then you can say, I wrote something this week, right?
Agreed.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to our final segment, which is what's next. Jen, what's next for you in the coming week?
Well, we are waiting on baby Tong. Like we are on gas. So some point in the next few weeks, I will be out of here, driving to Illinois to greet our little grandbaby that is coming into the world. And so a lot of preparation for that, like as far as like getting my house in order for a house / animal sitter, because not only do we have dogs, we have outdoor barn cats, and we have chickens, and now my garden, which is like flourishing. So
nice.
Yeah, so trying to just get everything in order so that we can literally like drop and run when we get the phone call. So a lot of my time honestly is being set doing that. But I think I'm going to also work a little bit on website stuff and getting ready for the release of book 4, the things like behind the scenes stuff. So that's what's next for me. What about you, Jamie?
Well, you know how I said I got that new dresser, and there's obviously going to be a reason that you're looking for a dresser. And for me, it's because like, what do I do with my new pickleball outfits? Do I hang them? Do I put them in a drawer? Oh, I guess I don't have a drawer for pickleball, like for that kind of stuff. Leggings, whatever. And so I have wardrobe considerations. I've got to move some furniture around and decide where I'm putting the dresser. And so really, that's what I'm doing like this weekend-ish. And then we shall see what the rest of the week holds. Still waiting to feel like I want to be a writer again, because I feel like with the financial why having gone out the window, I'm really struggling finding a why, but I'm not worried about it. I'm just waiting for it to come around, having faith that it will.
Mm-hmm.
Piper's waiting on a grandbaby too, and she's writing the final act of her WIP. Wow, the final act!
That's awesome.
Wow, and a baby. Wow, the birth of a book and the birth of a baby. How nice.
So exciting.
And there's some congratulations for you.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
Purpose Behind the Pen is a new nephew coming next month. Oh, what a wonderful season this is. Oh, well, thanks for sharing this hour with us today. Until next time, this concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next week, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.